So we are now on the second group of animals that we're going to discuss. Right after the horse, we're going to have the ruminants. Now, the ruminants, as we all know, are composed of your cattle, your carabao, your sheep, and your goats. And we also have to consider also our deers as ruminants, although they're classified as cervids, which we'll later on discuss in the last topic in our lecture. Now, ruminants, they're named as such because these are animals that has 4 complete cavities on their stomachs, and that they do characteristically regurgitate undigested food from the rumen and masticate it when at rest. They have 4 cavities. You have the forestomach, which is composed of the reticulum, rumen, and omasum, and then they have one true stomach called the abomasum. So these are the members of these mammalian suborder Ruminantia. So this is pretty much how the ruminants have in their digestive system. So they have esophagus, but right after the esophagus, they have the rumen, and then they also have the reticulum over here, which is the most cranial of the 4 compartments. We also have the omasum and the abomasum, and then they have the small intestines and the large intestines, which we'll later discuss. Also discuss the process of rumination later on. A quick review on the different breeds of cattle, just in case. So we're just going to run over because we already discussed this in your Zoot 1 or VM005. So here's your carabao. This just happens to be our national animal. And carabao. However, our country, the Philippines, also is the home of the tamara, which happens to be the dwarf buffalo or the pygmy buffalo, which is endemic only in Mindoro Island. They stand around 95 to 120 centimeters and weighs approximately 200 to 300 kilograms. Their population in the wild is estimated to be around 350 individuals. Most likely there are around 400 individuals right now, and they're considered to be critically endangered. So they're usually found not on the plains, but in the highlands of Mindoro, and they usually are active right before dusk and early morning. So that's where you can usually spot them. Last October is October, we celebrate the Tamarao Awareness Month, and unfortunately during that time last month, one of the last tamaraws that were captive bred, Kalibase, passed away at the tender age of 21. I saw his pictures. The guy already has cataracts. He's a pretty old guy already, 21 years old. And maybe, I don't know exactly what happened to his carcass, but most likely his carcass might be featured in our National Museum of Natural History, pretty much like what Lolong is right now. So if the New York Natural History Museum has Rexy, as you have, I hope you saw Night at the Museum, Lolong is our answer to Rexy. So hopefully Kalibasib will be featured in our National Museum as a taxidermy. And the tamarao happens to have a V-shaped horn. So if you can see this here, this is their horns. It's V-shaped. Unlike our carabaos, it's U-shaped. They're very short. Actually, they're located at the foothills of the mountains. Mindoro is quite mountainous. It actually has a volcano, Mount Halcon. I don't know if it's active. It's registered as active or inactive. It's a stratovolcano. It's a very big, very tall volcano actually. Okay. And it's Tabarao, so that's pretty much their horns. And apparently, Cebu was home of a subspecies, another species of Tamara, which is the Bubalus cebuensis. So they were found, the fossilized humerus of this Tamara was found in Balamban, Cebu, which is the town west of Cebu City, by a group of miners in the 1960s. This Tamara was believed to live in the island during the last ice age. This is around 20,000 years ago when the ice melted. They were much smaller than the modern day Tamarao, and the fossilized humerus is now at the Field Museum in Chicago, USA, pretty much like the golden Tara in Surigao. Unfortunately, this humerus is not displayed on the museum. It's actually on the archives. So, unlike some of the things that they got from the Philippines that are featured, this one is not featured there on display. So this is how it looks like. So this is the existing dwarf buffalo. So this is their Tamarao, and this is our Carabao. So take note of this is its metacarpals and metatarsals. So pretty much the Cebu Tamarao it stood less than 3 feet tall in comparison to our Mindoro Tamarao. Okay, this is from the first batch of students that I taught with anatomy. And it's almost December, and we're most likely going to have resolutions and stuff, and probably filling our planners of our plans and hopes for the new year. So what we do, it's just a tip, do not make resolutions, but rather make goals for the new year. So what would be your goals, or what would be on your bucket lists? Now, we'll proceed with osteology. So for a while, you'll get to see my face with my roommate. Internal organs. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we are now in our osteology. So this is just a quick review of your VM005, so I don't need to discuss this anymore. So this is the vertebral column of our ruminants. So again, all of them have 7 cervical vertebrae, because it's pretty much a feature of mammals, and all of them have 13 thoracic vertebrae. For the lumbar, it varies. So the larger ones have around 6. Goats have 7 lumbar, while sheep will vary between 6 to 7, depending on the breed. For the sacrum, the cattle only has the most number of sacrum, which is at 5. The carabao, goats, and sheep have 4. And then the coccygeal bones varies among species and among breeds. So this is their skeleton. So this is their metacarpals. And they're classified as artiodactyls. Now, osteology. So the atlas of ovines, your sheep, and bovines have no transverse foramen. Usually the transverse foramen, if you can recall in your anatomy 1, is featured in all cervical vertebrae except for C7. But only in bovines, wherein the atlas and the C7 don't have the transverse foramen. Their axis, dens of the ruminants, is spout shape. They have well-developed ventral plate under 6 cervical vertebrae. And the ruminant ribs have flat, wide shafts and long necks. And their scapulae are triangular in shape, which their spine divides the lateral surface into unequal fossae. In terms of the number of ribs. So since all species of ruminants have 13, they have 13 total number of ribs, pairs rather. And then for the sternal ribs, there's around 8 pairs. And then for the sternal ribs, they have 5 pairs. We continue with the osteology. So ruminant humerus has a massive lateral tuberosity which overhangs its bicipital groove, and the ulna of cattle is completely fused. That projects distally beyond the radius as a styloid process. And the ulna is not necessarily fused in small ruminants but extremely slender. So for here, so it doesn't have any ulna anymore. So ruminants have 6 carpal bones, wherein the first carpal bone is missing, and the second and third carpal bones are fused. So the metacarpals of ruminants only have metacarpals 3 and 4, which are fused, and they're the ones that bear weight. And the fifth metacarpal is vestigial, meaning it doesn't have any use. So as I've said, the ruminants are considered as artiodactyls or even-toed animals, and their third trochanter is missing. The head of the fibula is fused with the tibia, and most of the fibula's body has not developed. The distal end of the fibula, which is the lateral malleolus, fuses to the tibia, becoming in essence a part of the tibia, except for the buffaloes or the carabao. So that's the distinguishing feature between a cattle and a carabao. And there is no interosseous space between the tibia and fibula. Ruminants have 5 tarsal bones due to the fusion of 4 bones to form 2 bones, and in ruminants, the fifth metatarsal is absent, so is first metatarsal. Thus, metatarsal 2 is its vestigial bone, and like the metacarpals, the third and the fourth metatarsals are considered as the canon, and these are the weight-bearing ones. Goats and sheep. Now, we can, for an non-veterinary medicine student or non-veterinary practitioner or even non-animal scientist, there are certain species or breeds of goats that do look like sheep, and there are certain breeds of sheep that do look like goats. Now, how are you going to distinguish if it's a sheep or a goat? Based on its carcass and based on its being live, just to make sure. For carcass, sheep has an external lacrimal fossa. So they have an external lacrimal fossa. So this is a sheep. See? So this is their lacrimal fossa. This is the external one. Their coronal or frontoparietal suture in sheep forms an angle pointing rostrally. Sorry. The spinous process of the cervical vertebrae are short and blunt in sheep, while longer and pointed and sharp-edged in goats. Sheep has a prominent tuberspinae scapulae, which bend caudally, while goats have none. So you have here, so this is the sheep scapula, and they have a spinous tuber, and it's moving towards caudally. Goats don't have that. For live animals, usually goats have erect tails, and the base of the sheep's horn is triangular, while goats is elliptical with a sharp rostral border. Sheep also have lacrimal, inguinal, and interdigital cutaneous pouches. So this is where the lanolin is being sourced from. While for goats, they only have the interdigital pouches on their 4 feet. Goat males, or the bucks, have beards, and these bucks have large odoriferous horn glands, zones of thickened skin containing large cutaneous glands caudal to the base of the horn. So these are the cutaneous pouches, which is present in our sheep. And these are the horn scent plant. So if you try to smell on that area there, it stinks. So that's it. So that ends our first topic for the ruminants. So for the next topic, you will have the internal organs. So I'll see you in I I'll upload it in the next hour.